Through investigation and access to information filing at rebelinvestigates.com, I can finally share with you what I have received in response to an inquiry into the Public Health Agency of Canada's assessments on the functioning or lack thereof of the federally implemented Vaccine Injury Support Program. Simply known as VISP, this program was born from the Liberal government's 2020 decision to fast-track novel COVID-19 modified RNA vaccines to market. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had already assured Canadians that a vaccine was necessary to get back to normal in April of that same year, a few weeks after provinces and territories declared states of emergency practically in unison. The draft report from December of 2023 of this program is meant to serve as a case study to assess the design and implementation of VISP, as well as the achievement of immediate outcomes from December of 2020 until August 2023. It's based on the review of select evidence, including approximately 20 documents and 5 interviews with program representatives and partners, and is intended to provide an overview of VISP's progress in achieving its short and medium-term outcomes, as well as considerations going forward. The background notes that while vaccine injuries are a rare occurrence, a small number of people in Canada may experience an adverse event following vaccination, except that according to the FDA, adverse events from vaccines are common but underreported, with less than 1% ever being reported. Internist and cardiologist Dr. Peter McCullough outlined the vast number of injuries following these novel injections in the U.S. VAERS database during his discussion in September at the Canada Christian College in Whitby, Ontario. Aside from the shocking numbers, he says that the underreporting rate specifically for deaths is approximately 30-fold. With known heart inflammation adverse events like myocarditis, reports of this in VAERS after COVID-19 vaccination was 223 times higher than the average of all vaccines combined for the last 30 years. It's important to note here that the VAERS system is often criticized as being passive and unreliable, but it is a federal criminal offense to misappropriate and abuse this system. So doing so isn't generally taken lightly and is largely frowned upon. Now back to this case study, the background further notes that the safety of vaccines is monitored by Health Canada and PHAC, that's the Public Health Agency of Canada, through the Canadian Adverse Events Following Immunization Surveillance System, acronymed CAFIS. The online reporting requirement of that system was actually taken down by Health Canada in December of 2020, just as the novel injections were set to roll out, in what the agency called was an attempt to streamline the CAFIS system and the Canada Vigilance Program that also existed simultaneously at that time. In a parliamentary response document, it took Health Canada 2 years to reinstate a direct link to report adverse events following immunization, called an AEFI. Coupled with this confusing bureaucratic red tape, this only worsened the already severe underreporting of vaccine injuries, leaving Canadians struggling to navigate the system, while health professionals' concerns about the lack of clear communication and accountability fell on deaf ears. Nonetheless, the VISP program was supposed to fill gaps for those inevitably harmed by the safe and effective marketing campaign, which taxpayers paid roughly $10 million for. It was meant to ensure fair and timely access to support for serious adverse reactions following a vaccine, something they call an unintended response. You may recall that this program funnels approximately 60% of its total budget allocations to the consultants, in the millions of dollars, to those consultants administering the program, with less than half going to the victims of the safe and effective sloganeering. This was intentionally done because PHAC, quote, did not have the expertise necessary to process vaccine injury claims, and there would otherwise be a perceived conflict of interest because Health Canada approves and monitors vaccines, and PHAC serves as a secretariat for the National Advisory Committee on Immunization, end quote. Of course, NACI cannot deter from the safe and effective chant. In fact, NACI makes its own off-label recommendations. They confirmed that to me via email in December of 2022. But speaking of conflicts of interest, that third-party administrator is Raymond Chabot Grant Thornton Consultancy Inc., which is now Oxera. They were also responsible for developing and marketing a vaccine validation solution, an employee/employer portal, marketed as a way to securely review and assess vaccination records for compliance, a page that is now scrubbed from their website. I'd say that's a pretty clear conflict of interest for the same entity responsible for developing and profiting from the technology used to enforce vaccine mandates to now somehow be expected to be impartial and transparent about vaccine injury. In terms of how effectively VISP is actually being run, they say that Auxerra is processing claims and distributing payments to beneficiaries within the established standard, which they say is 12 to 18 months. For 2022 to 2023, 91% of claims were processed within this time frame, with 75% of claims evaluated and 90% of payments issued within the same. In the first 2 years of the program, from June 2021 until June 2023, there were 1,859 claims, with a mere fraction, only 103 approved and finalized. As the most recent update reflecting a cutoff date of June 2024, there have now been almost 1,000 more claims to the VISP program, 2,628 to be exact, with only 80 more approved, for a grand total of 183. Auxerra acknowledges in the study that they are having difficulty managing financial support payments, forecasting ongoing program costs, and dealing with the complex nature of injury support programs. They say that financial support payments are complicated by the Treasury Board's budgetary schedule because it does not align with program delivery. The well-paid consultants found that the initial funding profile of $19 million per year for the first 3 years of the program did not correspond to the program's needs, since the first 2 years were dedicated to program implementation, and the focus on assessment of claims only occurred in year 3. That's right, it took 3 years for these consultants to address the thousands of Canadians suffering from severe, life-altering injuries that left people hospitalized, disabled, or even dead, while the system turned a blind eye to their pain and desperation so that they could figure out how to implement the program. You'd think this might have been worked out before the rollout of these novel injections were sent indiscriminately onto the population, including to babies and children. Auxerra says they had a higher than anticipated volume of claims, which necessitated yearly amendments to the agreement. They state that their yearly cap is difficult to predict, especially in terms of income replacement payments in cases where children are injured, given that there is no income history on which to base potential earnings. That is so disturbing. As I rightfully pointed out in my report comparing the continued payouts to the victims of the safe and effective thalidomide crisis in the 1950s, Auxerra acknowledges that some payments may last decades, and they cannot predict how many COVID boosters or other vaccination campaigns will be required in the future, further impacting the program's budget.
There is no set maximum that one individual can claim from the program, as there can be lifetime stewardship or following along with benefits reoccurring year to year, month to month, expense by expense. In referring to the injury indemnity itself, the one-time lump sum payment, the initial maximum for the program is $275,000, and that is a maximum. As Dr. Jen pointed to earlier, the Medical Review Board will determine a percentage of injury which will go against that maximum. This maximum of $275,000 will be indexed every year as well to keep up as well. Thank you.
All right, so it sounds like there's a maximum for the lump sum, but for ongoing expenses and compensation, there's not necessarily a set limit. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct. We could be providing benefits to applicants and injured people for a very long time, and we will continue to support them any way we can.
Auxerra was supposed to roll out a claimant feedback survey in 2023 and 2024, and it will be extremely interesting to hear those reviews when that's done. After years of delays, bureaucratic filibustering, and confusion, the Vaccine Injury Support Program remains a grotesque failure, leaving, at the very least, thousands of Canadians suffering from debilitating vaccine injuries without timely support, while taxpayer dollars flow into the hands of well-paid consultants who spent years implementing a program that should have been ready before the mass rollout of the novel injections. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. In addition to supporting our exclusive investigations at rebelinvestigates.com, you can head over to nomoreshots.ca to find accurate, up-to-date scientific reporting on the rollout of these novel products. There you can sign our petition and send a form email to Federal Minister of Health, Mark Holland, calling on him to revoke market authorization for these injections. All of that and more at nomoreshots.ca.